Okay, great. I should be recording right now. Yep, so this is our agenda. We'll go over some brief introductions. I have my colleague Hugh here with me. We'll go over the PLOS academic editor role and the bulk of using editorial manager, our editorial processes here at PLOS. We'll have time for Q&A at the end, and please feel free to submit your questions in the chat as we go through, and then we can cover those in the Q&A as well. And then we'll have a closing and optional breakout rooms if you'd like to meet your fellow academic editors. Great, so starting off with the PLOS staff here today, one of which is me. My name is Cassie Granger. I am a research associate on the editorial board services team. So a lot of what I do is creating resources, sharing resources, and providing more information to support you guys as academic editors. And I will pass it over to Hugh.
Thanks, Cassie. Yes, my name is Hugh Cowley. I'm a senior editor for PLOS One. Mostly that involves well, a wide range of things, going from initial manuscript checks against our policies, all the way through to things like outreach, attending conferences, pub ethics work, publication ethics work. It's quite a varied role, but a lot of it interfaces with you all. So that's why I'm here today.
Great, thanks, Hugh. And to get to know you guys a little bit more and to see who's on the call today, I am going to launch a poll that has these questions here, and we'll give you guys about a minute to answer once I launch it. Okay, and you should see that on your screen. And it's the same couple questions here. I've heard that this is like a popcorn effect, like you see a couple trickle in and then you get a boom of answers. And yes, that does seem to be the case. Okay, it looks like we got a majority of PLOS One AEs here and a couple from Global Public Health. And quite a few people that have been in their careers for a while. And cool, we've got quite a mix of people. We've got from Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, South America. So we are truly global. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. It's nice to see that representation here. Great. So getting into it, yeah, so these are the spread of AEs that we have here today. You might need from an AE from PLOS One, Climate, GPH, Water. And these journals are quite broad in their coverage and disciplines. So we have, let's see, each of these websites, we have our editorial board members listed on there. And I'm just going to give an example. Here's the PLOS One site, and you can search by editorial board members by name or by topic area. So anything would come up here, and then anybody that falls into this section, you would be able to see that here into that topic area, excuse me. And that applies to all of the journals. One thing I do want to call out is due to the size of the boards, PLOS One and GPH are both automatically synced with your information from editorial manager daily, every 24 hours. And then Climate and Water, we're still in the manual stage of updating those websites. And so we have section editors and academic editors on these journals. Section editors are more in an advisory capacity, basically oversee issues with manuscripts and help develop that section. And then you, as academic editors, the next slide here, are key and essential to our work in getting these manuscripts published. So you see, facilitate the peer review process all the way from the beginning to the end. And going into our code of conduct, this you would have seen at onboarding. We take publication ethics very seriously here at PLOS, and we expect our editorial board members to do the same and uphold these code of conduct. You can also have this linked. This is linked in the PLOS Editor Center, which I don't have pulled up. But it is linked here and will be shared in the slides. And moving on, getting started in Editorial Manager. So this is one of the guides that we'll be going over. It's really Editorial Manager. You might have used it for other journals that you may be on. And it can be a tricky interface, but once you get used to it, you can reference this guide at any time. And that is this guide here. So once you log in the upper right corner, you'll see your name and update my information. That is just where maybe you changed institutions and you want to keep that updated, or you want to change, you've changed your email. Email is key. That is how we mostly communicate. That's how you receive manuscript invitations. That's how you can accept or decline. So it's really important to keep that updated. And then it's also important to keep your areas of expertise updated. So let's scroll down here a bit. These are our taxonomical terms that are basically used to match you to manuscript invitations. So submissions are matched by these terms. So it's really important to keep these updated. You might, if you don't see a term, you can go ahead and add in a personal keyword here, and that's just free text. Let's see, what do I want to highlight here? So PLOS One, because of its size, has a PLOS match algorithm-based matching. So it does use these terms, but it also uses your 10 authored papers that you submitted to us at onboarding, and that does basically text-based matching to match you to submissions. So that's just on PLOS One. All of their journals use these taxonomical terms and these classifications. And then I also want to call out unavailability dates. This is also, if you scroll all the way down on that update my information page, you can submit unavailability dates. Maybe you have field work, maybe it's just a busy semester and you don't have time. You can indicate that here, and maybe you still want to handle the papers that you're currently handling or that might be out for revision. You can go ahead and leave that note here. We do, pay attention and read these unavailability dates. And heading into the life of a manuscript, what we have here, so when a submission comes to PLOS, we do have these initial technical checks where we scan for things like image visibility, if the metadata is there, ensuring there are ethical documents, that kind of thing. And then it goes ahead to submission scanning. And that's where our internal staff editors like you here go into look at whether the manuscript meets basic publication criteria, that kind of thing. And then it goes on to our invitations that you would see in your inbox. So at that stage, that's when you can accept to handle the manuscript and either issue a reject or decide that it can go out for peer review. And that's when this cycle starts here. Ultimately, you might reject or send it out for revision. Or if you do end up accepting it, it does go through technical checks again, and then production, and then ultimately publication. So invitations, they will come into your email. And I do have this quick guide so you can navigate the whole invitation process. So going into the anatomy of an invitation, you'll see the subject line is PLOS. They might go to your spam. I highly recommend just like adding us as a safe sender to your whoever your email provider is. And then anything here that is captured within the percent sign is a merge field. So, you know, it would populate with the actual manuscript number and then authors, that kind of thing. So here it's important to take a look at the author list. Here is where you might quickly scan for if you might have a competing interest, whether that's real or perceived. Then you would, you know, decline the invitation. You can accept or decline directly within the email itself. And what would help you do that is checking the keyword and abstract here within the email itself. However, if you want to take a look at the full submission, you can click this button here to log into the invitations to see all of the invitations that we've sent to you, and you can download the full submission here. And yes, I do want to highlight that, again, PLOS One matches you to these papers and sends these invitations. It's not perfect. If you are experiencing issues with invitations, maybe they're just really not in your area of expertise, you can go ahead and email us and we will do our best to fix your profile, basically. And that goes for any journal, not just PLOS One. We can work with you to maybe update your terms for, you know, GPH, water, and climate. And then moving along into the peer review timeline, this is flexible, but this is our general expectation here. So we do ask that you initially evaluate the manuscript within about 3 days, and then you have 1 to 2 weeks to secure reviewers. They might take up to 3 weeks to actually review the manuscript. And then we ask that you assess their submitted reviews within about 3 days to go ahead and make a decision. And that, you know, this cycle would repeat for each revision. And I think at this stage, I will go ahead and hand it to Hugh, and I will stop my sharing.
Thanks, Cassie. Let me pick this up. There we go. That should be the same slide. Excellent. Yes. So I'm going to run through the initial evaluation, review invitation, and decision-making progress. I just want to preface this by saying that there's going to be a lot of information here, and you're not expected to have picked this up just from this presentation. All of this information is available to you to reference. It'll be in the slides, or it'll be on our website. So this is more of an overview just to highlight the most important things for you to be aware of. So the first step is in the initial evaluation. Essentially, this is just looking at the manuscript against our publication criteria, any information that we staff editors may have brought to your attention, as well as just using your own subject area expertise to assess the content of the work. And then you will decide whether to continue with the peer review process or to find that the work does not meet our criteria and to reject without review. So this is all encompassed in this quick guide here, which I'm just going to click through to. Just as an aside, all of this information, as I think you should already be aware, is on this page on our website. If you, this is for PLOS One, it's the same for climate, water, and GPH. But if you go to this tab, this is the resources for editors page here. And all of the information in this presentation today, all of the guides I'm going to be going over are all linked on this page, as well as from the presentation that we're sharing as well. So this is the initial evaluation quick guide. And again, this is the same key takeaways that I just mentioned there. Now, our publication criteria are also linked to on our various websites. They are largely unified across each of these journals, with the exception being scope, of course, because each of these journals have their own specific scopes. If I click through to, for example, the PLOS 1 publication criteria, again, this is just on our website as well. But this will, this will provide all of the information about our requirements for publication. These are intentionally very broad, not just for one, but for climate, water, and GPH as well. The journal scopes are intentionally broad, and we're more or less relying on you to interpret these with regards to the norms and expectations of your respective fields. So these are all this kind of top level descriptions and guidance that this is open, this is for authors to read as well. And this is essentially what we need every publication to meet. I won't go through in detail. I'll leave you to do that in your own time if you're not already familiar with our requirements. But let's double check my notes here. So some initial potential misconceptions. We're very inclusive in regards to the sort of topics of papers that we want to publish. All submissions reporting original research or research methods contributing to the base of academic knowledge. This is regardless of perceived novelty. And without getting into a detailed discussion about the meaning of the word novelty, we're not interested in impact. What we are interested in is methodological rigor. That doesn't necessarily mean we will publish anything. We do expect that methodological rigor. We expect papers to not be derivative or to replicate previous work without clear scientific justification to do so. So if you receive a paper and you think it's methodologically sound, there are no concerns regarding publication ethics or research ethics, then if it meets all of our criteria, then great. The initial checks are for you to carry out, and then the peer review process is to then refine the work to ensure that it is ready for final publication, because nothing arrives to us as with any journal in immediately publishable format. And of course, the verification part of the peer review process is critical, and I'll be talking about that more in just a moment. And just to pick out in particular here, we do not copy edit manuscripts, and we do not expect you to do so either. This is one of our checks during the submission scanning before the manuscript should reach you. So hopefully they're reaching you in a state where peer review can take place. Maybe some minor copy editing is needed, but we recognize that this can be a challenging, this is publication criterion 5 if you want to use our terminology, but essentially the language quality, we recognize this can be challenging and nuanced to navigate. If you find that the work is methodologically sound and there are no other concerns regarding our publication requirements, we encourage you, if language quality is your only concern, is to issue a revised decision for the authors to address this. Essentially on the principle that if no more experimental work is needed, if no more scientific changes to the manuscript are needed, if it's just a question of language quality, that's almost always addressable. So that's the general principle we follow for this. When you receive, or when you agree to handle a manuscript, you'll receive an email with information from us. In some cases, there will be information that we have added, the staff editors have added, to bring to your attention. I won't go over every single possible example of this because there are a wide range, and some of them we sort of decide on the spot. But this is just to emphasize that because of all of our correspondence with you is by email, you will need to read the email in full to make sure that all those matters are brought to your attention. When we do this, we will often leave our personal contact email, well, our personal PLOS contact email in the information for editor notes. This is at the top of the details page on the manuscript details page as well on Editorial Manager. often we will advise you to contact us or the PLOS1 email address if you have any questions or concerns about any notes that we've left for you. So I think I've covered everything I wanted to say there. Yeah, so first of all, once you've assessed whether the manuscript meets our kind of initial publication criteria, your choice is to peer review or to reject. There's information on this guide about when to reject. It's basically if the manuscript clearly doesn't meet our publication criteria. We will often check against this at submission scanning ourselves, but very often this can be a matter of scientific judgment, especially with regards to methodological rigor. So that's why we don't carry out, we do ask you to make these checks as well. But if the manuscript does meet the publication criteria, fine to proceed with peer review. If it doesn't, it's okay to reject without inviting external reviewers. If you do choose to reject work without inviting external reviewers, we do ask that you have provided enough information in your decision letter, which you can edit, for the authors to understand why you've made that decision. If you can link back to our specific publication requirements, that's great. That's ideal. But as long as you can provide a clear justification for that decision, then by all means, explain that to the authors as best you can. So when to reject without review? First of all, as mentioned, serious methodological or analytical flaws that you feel cannot be addressed by peer review. Again, we don't make any detailed scientific assessments during the submission scanning. So that is on your responsibility and that of the peer reviewers to check. If you see a manuscript, you open it, and you yourself find there are serious methodological or analytical flaws, then rejecting without review would be appropriate. Similarly, if conclusions are not supported by the data, for example, the example given here is insufficient sample sizes, but it can be any reason why there is an unaddressable lack of support for the conclusions drawn by the authors. Similarly, flawed, weak, or insufficiently detailed hypotheses, unclear study rationale, as in the scientific motivation for the work, unclear methods, unclear analyses, things that would prevent the scientific assessment of the work also would be sufficient reason to reject without review. Also, and this I realize is another very nuanced statement, but redundant work that doesn't clearly reference and discuss the existing literature. So we do allow for purposeful replication studies where people are testing the reproducibility of previous work. But if in your assessment, the work is not making a sufficient change on previous work as to start straying into the realm of possible plagiarism or duplication of previously published work, that is also a reason to not continue with peer review. This is explained specifically on our publication criterion too. Also, if you think there might be addressable issues with revisions, but it would take significant time and effort, such to the point where it would be a new submission, fundamentally when fixed, that is also a reason to reject without peer review. You might want to issue in that instance what we call an open desk reject. Sorry, an open rejection. There's not a specific option for this on Editorial Manager, but in your decision letter, if you consider that the work could become potentially publishable, please feel free to issue a reject decision at this stage, but mention in your decision letter that you would encourage a resubmission once the concerns you've identified have been addressed. And again, I won't go into more detail, but this guide also gives broad timelines as to what we consider, a long time. And as mentioned here, in all other situations, please seek external peer review. That was everything from the initial evaluation guide. Once you've decided to send a work out for peer review. One of the most challenging parts can be finding and securing reviewers. We know this, we recognize this. Sometimes we have to act as editors of last resort and find reviewers ourselves, and we share your pain. We recognize that there's a lot of competition for attention with regards to the peer review process. Getting reviewers to agree and report on a manuscript can be challenging. So just want to make sure you're aware. We know that this is not an easy task. Hopefully, this guide will be able to help you in making this as painless as possible. So essentially, what's a suitable reviewer? This is something we're going to cover. How to secure reviewers, we'll cover this as well, and how reviewers are invited and invitations are managed in Editorial Manager as well. So again, this is another of the quick guides. I'll just click through to here. It's also available on our website. So that was just what I spoke about there. What is a suitable reviewer? Suitable reviewers have expertise in the subject matter and methodology. They are actively publishing on the topic or related topic and are unbiased and don't have potentially either actual or perceived competing interests in the publication of the work. So we have a brief checklist here about what we recommend in terms of qualifications and expertise. So broadly, and just to emphasize, this will be very different for different fields. We broadly say five or more papers published in their history. We leave to your judgment as to what you would consider having sufficiently published to demonstrate expertise. But again, good signifiers are publishing as the corresponding or final author. The most important part really is showing that they have expertise in the research area, and ideally also the specific methodology used by the authors, or close enough as possible. Ideally also at the postdoctoral or equivalent degree level. And again, this is going to vary by field as to whether that is sufficiently senior or having sufficient expertise, or whether someone at an earlier stage might be also suitable for your field. These are guidelines. Someone with significant amount of experience in the field is what we're looking for here. Generally speaking, you want someone who is affiliated with an academic, so a university or college, a governmental, a not-for-profit or public-private research institution, or a company that carries out research and development. Just as a way to verify that someone has been employed for their expertise in that particular area, as opposed to independent, fully independent researchers. This is just as a way to verify their expertise. The next checks are required. This is specifically regarding competing interests. So this is worth the time to really focus on here. This isn't so much about whether you can verify that someone has a competing interest. It's very much about perception. We ask that, and reviewers are given the same request, that any potentially perceived competing interest is declared. And if you are aware of any such perceived competing interest, then the reviewer, not to invite the reviewer, or if the reviewer states a competing interest, to take that into account when making a decision. And you may then wish to seek additional reviewers if that comes to light. These are the most straightforward checks to make. That the reviewer doesn't work at the same institution as any of the authors. They're not listed in the opposed reviewers section of the submission. This will be something you can check when you agree to handle a manuscript. They've not collaborated or published with any of the authors during the past 5 years. This can be more difficult to check. This is something we're aware of. It's very difficult to sort of unify information about individuals available on Editorial Manager with information on the broader internet. We recognize this. This is more a case of if you are aware that the reviewer may have published with the authors, maybe carry out a brief check. We do also ask, as I mentioned, to the reviewers to declare any such competing interests. So if you make an exception and choose to invite a reviewer with a competing interest, or if you invite a reviewer who you're not aware has a competing interest, we state that they must declare this on their review form. And the important thing is to ensure that you receive input from at least one additional objective reviewer who does not have a competing interest. So tips for securing reviewers. These are all from other editorial board members, broadly aligned under three sort of expanding fields of search. So first of all, people you know. We're not asking you to lean heavily on your immediate network, but so when we say this, we're not necessarily talking about your closest colleagues. We are talking about researchers you know of in the field, people who you've worked with, people who you have some sort of contact with. Essentially, just because they know you, they're more likely to, respond to you. Beyond that, researchers whose work that you know, that's also a great way to both be sure that you're inviting someone with appropriate expertise, but also they're more likely than completely unrelated people to recognize you, to recognize the work that's going on in the submission. And then finally, if you run out of options there, carrying out a broader search on the internet. On Editorial Manager, we have the Web of Science Reviewer Locator tool, and this can provide a list of suggested reviewers. But again, make sure to run through the checklist before you invite them. You can also use databases, PubMed, Google Scholar, Web of Science, whatever you use for your field. Find similar articles and consider inviting the corresponding author or the last author. That also works. You can also look at the current submission that you're handling and look at the reference list in the article. But again, there's a higher probability that that will be work that might have come from collaboration with the authors of the work. So this can be a really useful way of finding people, but just be aware there's an elevated risk of competing interests in that situation. Some additional tips here. Early career researchers do tend to have more time and willingness to review. This is just sort of something we see universally across all fields. We do also encourage co-reviewing. This is often overlooked, but if you know someone, if you know, say, a group leader who might not have the time to carry out the review themselves, you might want to suggest to them that one of their postdocs, one of their students carries out the review under their help. There is a section in the review form where that can be declared, and we actively encourage this because it's a great way to get people who might not have experience peer reviewing to have some experience being a peer reviewer. So please do bear that in mind as well. You can personalize the invitation templates. There's all of the information on how to do this is in the Editorial Manager guide. We won't ask you to write an essay in this, but this might be a way to make your invitation stand out as being very specific to the person you're contacting. An important note is that the Editorial Manager database of users is uncurated. So we ask you not to be tempted to use the Editorial Manager database search as a way of finding reviewers, because their stated expertise haven't been verified. In most cases, they're accurate, but we do ask that if you find someone using just the regular Editorial Manager database search, please look them up to verify their expertise. You don't need to vet them in detail, but make sure that it broadly aligns with what they've stated on Editorial Manager before inviting them. You can also, when you send your invitations, you can set reviewers up as alternatives. So you can say, for example, look up 8 reviewers for a manuscript, and you can select 2 of them to invite and the rest as alternatives. And what that means is if the first 2 decline or don't respond, then editorial manager will automatically invite the next reviewers on the list that you've put together. So this can save you from having to come back and forth to editorial manager when you receive notifications of reviewers declining. So just be aware that that is an option that you can use on editorial manager. If you find that you are not able to secure a second reviewer, you are entirely entitled to review the manuscript yourself. But please note, it's very, very important. You must either sign your review if you invite yourself as a reviewer. There's a field in the reviewer form where you can provide your name, or mention in your decision letter that you've acted as the reviewer. It's very important for transparency. It's so that the author knows that you're not relying on 2 independent evaluations. It's 1 independent evaluation plus your own. That's a perfectly legitimate way to carry out peer review. It's a lot more time consuming on your part, but if you're having real trouble finding another reviewer, then please be aware that this is something that you can do. As a final note, if necessary for certain specialized article types, the journal can help with inviting statistical reviewers. These are reviewers who are paid specifically to evaluate the statistical aspects of a work. They won't be analyzing any of the sort of other scientific or methodological aspects outside of the ones relevant to statistics. And to note that we automatically invite such a reviewer for clinical trial manuscripts. All of the information on how to invite reviewers is in the editorial manager guide. This is linked to here. It's also linked to on the this page here I showed you earlier. That's this guide here. I think this is the one Cassie was showing earlier. So again, all of the information that we've covered so far, here is the information around inviting reviewers. It's quite exhaustive, but it has screenshots and information that you can work through to that will hopefully answer any questions that you might have. So yes, I won't go over this in great detail. There's lots of information around when reviewers are chased and how long they're given before we unassign them. But what I wanted to really focus on here is, in addition to what I've already mentioned about recognizing that people are busy, you are busy, the reviewers are busy, we recommend that you aim to start inviting reviewers as soon as possible so that we can get the ball rolling on trying to secure reviewers for a manuscript. We find that on average, again, this is going to vary hugely by field, but on average, it takes 8 or more invitations to secure 2 reviewers. But again, this can vary on how you approach this, the subject area, the time of year. We say expect to spend around about an hour searching for and inviting reviewers. That can vary, but that's our broad expectation across the field. And there's information there about alternate reviewers as well. Need to make sure that we're keeping to time here, so I will move on to the next page here. Yeah. So what happens when you have received your reviewer reports and now you need to make a decision? You'll receive the reviews in a structured form. The reviewers may not agree. I'm sure I'm stating the obvious there, but there is some advice that we give on how to handle this situation. There are 4 available decisions in Editorial Manager, and we have guidance regarding each of them. And we have some guidance on what makes a good decision letter on communicating your requirements to the authors. So again, we have a quick guide for this. So yes, we use a structured reviewer form. You can click through to this here. I won't go through it in detail, but this is what it looks like on Editorial Manager. We provide guidelines for reviewers, including considering for different article types. for your information, you can click through to the resources here to see more of what we share for them. Peer review is an opportunity for scientific debate. It's very, very likely that you will encounter a situation where a reviewer is unfocused, or where reviewers may provide opposite recommendations or differing recommendations on whether the manuscript should proceed, or even regarding what changes need to be made. I want to emphasize, in these situations, you as academic editor have the authority to contextualize the reviews and issue decisions based on your own expectations. So we ask that you don't consider reviews as, votes to be tallied for or against publication, largely because you're going to be aware of what expertise each of the reviewers have. If you have a long report, detailed report from someone who is very close in the field, you're going to want to put more emphasis on that recommendation than someone who's either providing less specific information or is less aligned with the work under review. So the important thing to take away here is that you want to consider each of these reviews as a whole, as opposed to just how many for, how many against, and also which of the reviewer comments are necessary. Our publication requirements are not, a manuscript needs to be perfect. A manuscript needs to be, must cover some, thunderous, groundbreaking advance. If the required revisions are, too onerous, you have the authority as academic editor to decide, actually, that's out of scope. That's not suitable for this review, for this submission. That might be reasonable to expect for future work. You may want to clarify that in your decision letter when you decide. We ask, this is very important, please do not edit the reviewer comments directly. These do end up forming part of the record for the manuscript. If you have opposite recommendations, or you want to contextualize or clarify your expectations regarding reviewer comments, please do so in your decision letter, but please do not edit the actual reviewer comments themselves. If you are commenting on the reviewers' comments, please respect the reviewer's integrity. I'm sure I don't need to say that, but people can make comments in good faith that might be strongly worded, or they might be you might consider them unsuitable or inappropriate. You might want to reference that to the authors in your decision letter, how you consider they should respond. But please assume that all comments provided by reviewers are given in good faith, until or unless you have reason to believe otherwise. Covered that there. If after receiving the comments you decide that you cannot proceed with a decision on your own, you can go back to the reviewers to ask them to expand their comments. As a last resort, you might just decide that you want to seek help from an additional reviewer. You can send emails to the reviewers directly using the send email action link on the manuscript. And again, that's all explained in our guides. You can find, this is a nice little tool for going over common peer review situations. I encourage you all to take a look at this. There's a PDF version, and there's also an interactive version. This is set up as a survey. We're not recording any information from this. This doesn't go anywhere. It's just a nice little sort of thing you can click through to sort of explore various situations. But all of that information is on this PDF version as well. And it covers things like unaddressed concerns, misunderstandings, concerns that are newly raised at further revision stages, disagreement between reviewers, reviewers raising concerns around language. Lots of things that you might find useful when deciding how to proceed with the manuscript. You can contact the journal office. Our staff editors can provide guidance or help facilitate a consultation with another editorial board member. If you, for example, you reach a situation where you find a manuscript might be particularly controversial and you would like a sense check with someone with verified expertise around matter, we can help. That should be very rare, but we can help facilitate that. So the 4 editorial decisions are 2 revisions, accept, and reject. All of our guidance for when to use these are included here. And I'll mention that reject, even after peer review, you might consider encouraging the authors to resubmit. Again, that's not a specific option given on editorial manager, but you can revise your decision letter to state if you think the authors could resubmit after addressing the significant issues leading to the reject decision. I think let's check the notes here. Yeah, so the difference between minor and major revision, functionally, you can see what from the description here. Functionally, from the author's perspective, it's the same thing. This is more of a useful note to yourself. If you have issued a minor revisions decision, your expectation is that further review won't be necessary. If you issue a major revision, then your expectation is that further review will be necessary. So if there's some issues, maybe it's language quality, maybe it's some minor fixes to tables or tabulated data or something like that that's recommended by the reviewers. This is something that you find that you think you'd be able to assess yourself. Issue a minor revisions instead. If you think there are significant revisions that need further review, that's when to use major revisions. This isn't a commitment on your part, just to be clear. If you issue a minor revisions and the author's revisions raise more questions than they answer, you may want to go back to the reviewers and have that checked over. But this is more of a sort of the difference on when to use them from your perspective, major versus minor. And accept, of course, is when the manuscript is appropriate for publication exactly as it is. I just want to emphasize here, all manuscripts require at least one external review before an accept decision can be issued. We respect your expertise, and this is not a question with regards to that. This is just for basic peer review standards. All publications require at least one individual who's not the handling editor with expertise in the topic to have verified the work. This often goes unsaid, but if you yourself have a potentially competing interest with a reviewer, so say you have decided to carry out an evaluation of the work, and you decide to invite one of your colleagues from your own institution to assess the work, they are not sufficiently independent in that situation. So if you, as handling editor, invite two reviewers, one of whom is from your institution and one is external, absolutely fine. That's not a problem at all. It's only if you are reviewing the manuscript yourself, the other external reviewer will need to be someone who is not from your institution. What's that? And then just some guidance on when the authors return a revised manuscript, whether to proceed to publication or additional review. We do say to try to avoid inviting new reviewers at this point, unless it's necessary, though we do recognize that does happen. In the decision letter, you will, in the template email, there'll be a section that looks a little bit like this. It might have some extra text in there specific to the journal that you're working on. Please replace this text with the comments that you want to send to the authors. Again, we don't expect you to be writing huge amounts on this, with the exception of if you're reviewing the paper yourself, but a sentence or three stating any clarifications regarding the reviewer comments, that's all we're looking for here. And what makes a good decision letter? Really, I mean, the best advice I can give is what kind of decision letter would you like to receive? Aside from just, accept everything, right? What's the, if you're looking for constructive feedback, what would you like to see? What you want to see context for the revisions. If there are differing opinions, differing guidance, you'd like an editor to tell you, actually, we think this rather than this, or something like that. Hopefully those situations won't be very common, but that's a good guide point for you to follow. What would you like to receive as the authors as constructive comments, whether it's revisions, whether it's reject. Ideally, also making clear if you are rejecting a manuscript, as with rejecting before review, what criteria the manuscript fails to meet. And some expectations here just regarding if you feel you're not able to complete your assignment for any reason, please let us know as soon as possible. We will label some manuscripts for just checks. We spot check some decisions as well. So you might hear from us when you've submitted a decision. We might want to check something with you. We might want to bring something to your attention at that stage. So just be aware that you might also hear from us once you've submitted a decision as well. And finally, just to be clear here, authors can opt in to publish their peer review history alongside their accepted manuscript, something we encourage with open science principles. If they do so, your decision letter will be published along with any peer review comments, as well as the author responses for each revision. So just be aware that this may end up being openly available, or your communications with the authors. Even if that doesn't happen, the reviewers will also receive a copy of your decision letter. So just be aware that anything you write in that decision letter will be seen by the reviewers too. And I think that's everything from me. I realize that's a lot of information to take in. Happy to take any questions at the end. I'll just try to stop sharing my screen. My toolbars disappeared, I'm afraid.
Sometimes you have to wiggle your mouse for it to magically appear again.
I don't know why it's gone away.
But we've only got a couple slides here if you're not able to find it. If you
sure, just let me know when you'd like me to move on.
Sure. Yeah, so that was a lot of information. We understand that it's a lot to digest, and I'm sure you'll get the hang of it once you start to work on these manuscripts. But again, Hugh showed it a couple of times. We have this resources to editor webpage. Essentially, it's all the same quick guides and many more. We try to cover some of the more nuanced situations too, like reassignments where maybe another academic editor was handling it and now it is assigned to you. And then we also want to highlight that this is available on PLOS One, and it's a private forum for academic editors. We call it Discourse. There you can post other general questions. Maybe you want to get general feedback. But if you have specific manuscript queries or questions, that's where we would like to direct you to these journal-specific websites, emails. And then if you have any general, more process questions, you can email us at edboardsupport@plos.org for any journal that you might be on. And there we can provide support on, like, maybe you're getting out of expertise invitations, or you want to ensure you're inviting appropriate number of reviewers given at a certain stage of the manuscript. So yes, and then just to recap, all of this information will be sent to you at the end of today, or maybe Monday. Today's Friday. But yes, you will get all this information. You'll get the recording. And at this stage, I do want to stop recording and we can move on to the open Q&A.